Chapter 37. At this also my heart trembleth, and is moved out of his place. Hear attentively the noise of his voice, and the sound that goeth out of his mouth. He directeth it under the whole heaven, and is lightning unto the ends of the earth. After it a voice roareth, he thundereth with the voice of his excellency. He will not stay them when his voice is heard. God thundereth marvellously with his voice. Great things doeth he, which we cannot comprehend. For he saith to the snow, Be thou on the earth, likewise to the small rain, and to the great rain of his strength. He sealeth up the hand of every man, that all men may know his work. Then the beasts go into dens, and remain in their places. Out of the south cometh the whirlwind, and cold out of the north. By the breath of God frost is given, and the breadth of the waters is straitened. Also by watering he wearieth the thick cloud. He scattereth his bright cloud, and it is turned round about by his counsels, that they may do whatsoever he commandeth them upon the face of the world in the earth. He causeth it to come, whether for correction, or for his land, or for mercy. Hearken unto this, O Job. Stand still, and considerest the wondrous works of God. Dost thou know when God disposed them, and caused the light of his cloud to shine? Dost thou know the balancing of the clouds, the wondrous works of him which is perfect in knowledge? How thy garments are warm, when he quieteth the earth by the south wind? Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as molten looking glass? Teach us what we shall say unto him, for we cannot order our speech by reason of darkness. Shall it be told him that I speak? If a man speak, surely he shall be swallowed up. And now men see not the bright light which is in the clouds, but the wind passeth and cleanseth them. Fair weather cometh out of the north. With God is terrible majesty. Touching the Almighty we cannot find him out. He is excellent in power and in judgment and in plenty of justice. He will not afflict. Men do therefore fear him. He respecteth not any that are wise of heart. In this chapter, Elihu basically says a couple of things that are really worthwhile noting. And partly because you'll see what happens in the chapters after this, why they sort of hit the chord. He says God rules over all of nature and all of man, and that the power and majesty of God are terrible. Now, the terrible doesn't mean bad. It means awesome, absolutely incredible, beyond belief, that man cannot imagine having that much powerful. That's the concept of terrible here. And the other thing that he says is that man cannot know God or his reasoning, and that God will afflict no man who doesn't deserve it. And there's a part of that that's true. There's a part of that that's not true. People can understand that God is loving and kind and generous the way an earthly father who is loving and kind and generous would be. You can understand his reasoning. What you might not be able to do as a child is understand why he wants you to go work in the garden and pull the weeds. You may only see that you wanted to play with your friend, but your father wanted you to weed the garden. Now, chances are that your father could weed the garden 10 times faster than you could, and a whole lot better. But he also knows that you need to start learning to work somehow. And he's willing to take the problems of dealing with you sometimes, which some children do give, to get them to understand that they can work. They need to work. They can actually enjoy this. And that takes time. It takes repeated effort. It takes understanding on the part of the person who's asking, the person who's protesting to do these things. And so it takes a learning process for us to understand some of God's reasoning as to why he wants to do this. But we can also understand that if he is kind and wise and loving and he won't do anything deliberately to hurt us, if something hurts us, that isn't a negative thing from God. It may be a consequence of something we did. It may be a consequence of something somebody else did. But just because something bad happened to it doesn't mean that it was from God. So Elihu is right here when he says God does not afflict people. God doesn't afflict people. But he teaches people. And sometimes people don't like the process of learning, whether we're adults or children. And some people it doesn't make any difference. If God interferes with whatever you have planned, some people object. No matter how wonderful the lesson might be, no matter how beneficial the lesson might be. Some people just plain object to learning. They figure that as soon as they finished school, they finished learning. No, you finished school, now it's time to get serious with the big time lessons. And the scriptures are sometimes the biggest of the big time lessons. You've got two choices. We can learn from the mistakes we make, which is a very thorough and intense course. Or we can learn in an easier way by seeing how other people learned and experienced things, which is what the scriptures are for. In his profound love for us, Heavenly Father has given us the scriptures so that we can learn by reading, simple reading, how he deals with people, what they need to learn. We can pretty well know the end from the beginning, as in the case of Job here. We know Job is righteous. We can see all the people telling him how he's not doing the right thing, how he's a secret sinner, all the rest of us. We know from the beginning that Job was righteous. We can learn from other people's example, which is a whole lot smarter way to learn. And that's how Heavenly Father would prefer us to learn, which is why the scriptures exist. So that by simple reading, we could do that. When Moses lifted up the serpent on the brass pole, all people had to do to be saved from these fiery serpents that were biting them was to look on it, and they would be saved. In our world, in our time, all we need to do is look to God, read how he has dealt with other people, and how he will deal with us. How honorably he will deal with us. How much he wants to bless us. How much he wants to help us. And if we can hang in there through the times when other people or our own choices have created problems for us, and not complain that how rotten God has been, he will make things better for us at the end than they possibly ever would have been in anything we could have done to prevent us from learning, to prevent us from having the negative experiences. He will turn them to our good.